What if the person you love became the one who nearly killed you? She was a rising star. He was a professional fighter. Together, they were passion and power, but behind closed doors, that passion turned into obsession, and obsession into horror. This isn't just a story about violence, it's a story about survival, about a woman who faced death and lived to tell the world the truth. Tonight, we go deep into one of the most shocking cases of celebrity abuse in recent history. This is the story of Christy Mack and the man who called himself War Machine.
Christy Mack was more than a name in the adult film industry. She was a rising star. Adored by fans and recognizable in tattooed ink and confidence. Jonathan Koppenhaver, known to the MMA world as War Machine, was a trained fighter with a turbulent past and an even more chaotic mind. Their worlds collided in 2013. Two public figures from high adrenaline industries, both famous, both explosive. The attraction was magnetic. She liked the edge he carried, the danger he wore like cologne. He saw in her a symbol of strength and sexuality. But underneath the chemistry, warning signs began to flicker like faulty neon. Friends noticed Koppenhaver's temper. Christy brushed it off at first. "He's intense," she would say, "but he loves hard." War Machine wasn't just intense, he was volatile. His MMA career was littered with violent outbursts inside and outside the cage. In fact, he'd already served time before their relationship began: assault charges, bar fights, confrontations. A man too dangerous for even the UFC. Yet Christy, despite her strength and independence, became entangled in his orbit. Fame often blinds. So does hope. They posted smiling selfies, appeared at red carpet events. But behind closed doors, a different story unfolded. The emotional abuse crept in slowly, isolating her, controlling her schedule, questioning her every move. Christy began losing touch with friends. She became quieter online, less of the firecracker her fans adored. War Machine was spiraling too. His career was slipping. His anger more unpredictable. By 2014, their relationship was crumbling, but the obsession hadn't faded. It had sharpened. Christy ended the relationship, but War Machine didn't accept no. To him, she was still his. He stalked her social media, sent cryptic messages. Friends say he became possessive, like a ticking time bomb. The darker thoughts in his mind were no longer whispers. They were screams he couldn't silence. Christy was rebuilding her life, quietly seeing someone new, a man named Corey Thomas. A fresh start. But War Machine didn't want her to start over. If he couldn't have her, no one could. On August 8, 2014, he boarded a plane to Las Vegas, holding no ticket back. He had no fight lined up. No business in town, just a mission soaked in rage. That night he crept into Christy's house, armed with hate and a deadly resolve. He found them asleep. The new boyfriend, unaware. Christy, unprepared for the nightmare she was about to endure. And in that quiet home, a storm exploded. The kind that doesn't just bruise bodies, it shatters lives. It began with a door swinging open. No warning. No chance to run. Just sudden violence. Corey Thomas, Christy's new boyfriend, woke up to fists. War Machine launched into him like a predator. He beat Corey relentlessly, cracking his face, choking him, calling him names through clenched teeth. Christy screamed, but War Machine shoved her away, focusing on humiliating the man in her bed. He forced Corey to sit in a corner, naked, taunted him. accused him of stealing his woman. For 10 harrowing minutes, Corey endured punches and threats, until finally, War Machine let him go. But it wasn't mercy. It was rage redirected toward Christy, and it was about to turn sadistic. He beat her with his fists, then with a knife. He dragged her by the hair over broken glass. Her face was shattered, cheekbones crushed, teeth knocked out. Her rib broke. Her liver ruptured. But he didn't stop. He took her phone, demanded passwords, threatened to kill her. He tried to rape her. But Christy was too injured. She told him she couldn't breathe. He didn't care. She begged for her life, told him she loved him. Lead, just to survive another minute. Hours passed, minutes crawled, blood everywhere, bones broken. Her dog barking nonstop. At some point, he went to the kitchen, looking for a dull knife to finish her off. She used that moment, the tiniest opening, to escape. Broken, bleeding, nearly naked. She ran to a neighbor's door, collapsed on the porch, and pounded weakly. "Help me." The neighbor opened the door and froze. What stood there wasn't just a victim. It was a miracle. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital. She had 18 broken bones, missing teeth, ruptured organs. Doctors said if she had waited 10 more minutes, she might not have survived. War Machine fled. The manhunt began immediately. His face appeared on news stations across the country. He tweeted cryptic messages, claimed he'd always loved her, that he'd walked in on cheating. The public wasn't buying it. Photos of Christy's battered face went viral. Her fans were outraged. So was the MMA world. A week passed, then 2. He was hiding, but the net was closing in. Finally, in California, he was found, at a motel, with pizza, knives, and a small suicide note. He didn't go out swinging. He didn't die a warrior. He surrendered quietly. The War Machine was done running. But for Christy Mack, the real war was only just beginning. The war of recovery, of justice, and of facing the man who tried to erase her. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Cameras outside. Reporters inside. The world was watching. Christy Mack stepped onto the witness stand, scarred but standing. A survivor with a story to tell. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't flinch. She recounted every blow, every moment of terror. The defense tried to paint it as jealousy, a crime of passion. They said War Machine snapped, but the evidence was undeniable. Photos, texts, blood-stained walls, hospital reports. Christy showed the world her broken teeth, her shattered eye socket. The damage didn't need words. She told them about the past too, the jealousy, the threats, the slow erosion of her safety. She said he used to count how many adult scenes she'd filmed, that he'd throw things when angry. The prosecution painted a portrait of control, of a man obsessed with ownership, not love. War Machine sat in silence, sometimes smirking, sometimes crying. He wore a suit, but it didn't mask the rage. Over 30 charges. Kidnapping, sexual assault, coercion, attempted murder. It was a mountain of accusations. Witnesses testified. Neighbors, police, medical experts. The evidence stacked like bricks in a wall. But it was Christy's testimony that pierced through the courtroom like a knife. She didn't ask for sympathy. She asked for the truth to be heard, and it was. The trial lasted weeks. The jury deliberated. The tension outside mirrored the silence inside. When the verdict came, it was Swift guilty on 29 of 34 charges. Christy wept, not from joy, but release. Justice had arrived, even if the scars remained. Then came sentencing. The judge didn't hold back. Life in prison with the possibility of parole after 36 years. Christy was 24 when it happened. She'd be in her 60s if he ever walks free. War Machine made a statement. Blamed his childhood, his temper, his lack of love. But the world didn't want excuses, it wanted closure. It wanted healing, and Christy, in that moment, became more than a survivor. She became a symbol for women in silence, for victims who feel unseen, for those who run for their lives and live to speak. She returned to public life slowly, not as a star, but as a fighter of a different kind. She partnered with domestic violence organizations, shared her story, sparked conversations. She turned trauma into truth, pain into purpose. A body broken, but a voice unshakable. The courtroom door closed, but the message remained. Silence is deadly. Speaking out saves lives.
When the cameras stopped flashing and the courtroom emptied, Christy Mack faced her hardest chapter yet. She had survived a monster, but healing would take more than surgery. It would take soul work. Each mirror reminded her of what had happened. Each scar whispered of pain, but also of survival. She documented her recovery not for attention, but to show others it could be done. Reconstructive surgeries came in waves, painful, necessary, and emotionally exhausting. Yet she smiled through the bandages, her spirit stronger than the bones he tried to break. On social media, thousands sent messages, survivors, fighters, women and men who saw themselves in her story. Christy became more than an adult film actress. She became an advocate, a voice for the voiceless. She joined campaigns against domestic violence, spoke at panels, donated to shelters. She reminded people that abuse doesn't always start with fists. Sometimes it starts with silence. Her photos once used to sell fantasy were now tools for education. For truth, the story of War Machine wasn't forgotten either. He became a case study of unchecked rage. MMA gyms reevaluated mental health support. Fighters spoke out against toxic masculinity. Journalists reflected on how fame has shielded his violence for too long. But Christy didn't dwell on him. She moved forward, brick by brick, building something unshakable. Her courage encouraged other victims to leave, to report, to survive. Even when they thought they couldn't, the hashtags she inspired weren't trends, they were lifelines. She wasn't just rebuilding a career or a brand. She was reclaiming her identity, one that wasn't owned by pain, one that belonged entirely to her. Today, Christy Mack walks in her truth, not quietly, but powerfully. She wears her past openly, not as a wound, but as armor and War Machine. He'll be behind bars for decades' time. She hopes gives him reflection, not redemption. She doesn't wish him hate. She wishes him distance, far from her, far from anyone else. The headlines faded, but the message didn't. Love doesn't hurt, control isn't affection, and in the aftermath of horror, one woman refused to stay broken. Christy Mack reminded the world, victims are not weak. Survivors are not silent. Because sometimes the strongest voice is the one that rises from the darkest night and keeps speaking.